a lot of people focus on a particular genre of music. And I have had radio shows that were country. I've done a punk show. I've done a radio show that was cover songs. I have done mashups. I've done a punk, or I've done a metal show. I've done, my 2 podcasts now are basically music related all across genres. So I can talk to you equally about Bob Marley as I can about Kenny Rogers, as I can about Bob Seger, as I can about Creator, as I can about Barbara Streisand, as I can about whatever. And it throws people off because when I did my original radio show, I would play The Cure, and then I would play Slayer, and then I would play Charlie Daniels, and then I would play something, and people were like, why do you do that? You play thrash metal, country, and alternative all together. Because I can.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. We're jumping off the Bruce train a little bit today, though I'm sure he will come up. He always does. And we are talking music God. My new friend CJ is on the horn with me. CJ, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me and allowing me to be the random mess that I am of a music expert, I guess.
Yeah, it was funny. Right before we hit record, you had said, man, I had a rough day. And I'm like, all right, we're going to shake it all off and we're going to make the day better. So tell us a little about yourself.
I got through the day with music, man. Me personally, where'd I start? I grew up in the front seat of a Peterbilt. My dad is in his 52nd year of truck driving.
Oh, wow.
So this was long before, laptops, computers, or cell phones, any of that.
Yeah.
I had books and music, and we listened to a lot of music. Bob Seger being at the top of the list. My dad's absolute favorite. Rule number 1 with my dad is thou shalt speak no bad of Bob Seger. But Pink Floyd, Boston, Bad Company, Jerry Reed, Charlie Daniels, Marshall Tucker, Blackfoot.
Yeah.
All of the classic Southern rock. My grandfather I got to the point where I had to attend school. I stayed with my grandparents. My grandfather, who is 95 this year, was a classic country fan.
Okay.
So I got Hank Sr. and Farron Young and Hank Snow and Conway Twitty and all of them.
Where was home base for your grandparents? Where were you living?
I grew up in the thumb of Michigan.
Okay.
Up near not quite at the Saginaw Bay, but up around that area. North of Flint, south of Saginaw.
Okay.
If you know who Greta Van Fleet is, I actually grew up just down the road from where they're from.
Okay.
So I actually went to high school with their father.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that is one of my cool rock and roll stories. I can say that I went to school with the father of the Greta boys. So
nice.
He is an amazing musician in his own right. He actually attended Berklee Institute of Music in Boston. Okay. So he is those boys were brought up to be rock stars. It wasn't something they just chose to do. He bred them boys to be what they were. So
so CJ, that's you've actually answered my first question, right? Is growing up, what kind of music you listen to? But it sounds like you had both pretty far extremes on both sides, classic country and then, good old what we call now, classic rock, but so.
And then the 80s hit. We had a steady stream. Me and my cousins, we listened to Rick Dees and Casey Kasem. So we had that. And then, of course, the late 80s, early 90s hit. We had hair bands, got deeply into that. I got into the punk scene, and I got a lot of punk, which progressed to me playing in a metal band, playing death metal in a band called Psychotic Therapy. I spent summers in the Cayman Islands in Jamaica with my uncle, who owned a scuba resort there. So I got a lot of reggae. So literally, I have had music around me from all over the world, all the different styles. My music collection right now is about 1.8 million songs on my hard drives, about 100 different genres.
Wow.
So I literally listen to just about everything.
Yeah.
I have bands from Pakistan, Japan, Sweden, Indonesia, Kazakhstan. It's all across the spectrum. So
it just, I guess, being raised that way, you had a, pardon the pun, a hungry heart for music.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Music has always been, they say music calms the hungry beast.
Right.
And that is very much me. Like, I've always had a restless mind, and music has been the one thing that has always been able to focus me and keep me, in the words of Michael Monroe, he said, dead, jail, or rock and roll. I've known my whole life it was always going to be one of those three choices. I was either going to be dead, I was going to be in jail, or I was going to play rock and roll in some form. And luckily, I got to go down to Rock and Roll Avenue, and it's kept me out of jail for the most part, and it's kept me alive. Yeah, it's been my saving grace, and it is what I know. I've dedicated my life to it for 40 plus years, and there was never a backup plan. At 13 years old, I was going to be a rock star. My grandpa said, that's cute, you should have a backup plan. My backup plan was I was going to be a rock star.
That's awesome.
So
your Twitter handle, right? You call yourself Rock God. So talk to me about the nickname Music God. Yes. How did you? Yeah. How did that come up with? How did that nickname find its way to you?
It actually came from my 6th grade teacher.
Okay.
I was in a mixed course class, and she was talking about Bob Seger.
Okay.
And from growing up in the front seat of that truck, essentially having nothing to do other than read liner notes and lyrics for most of those records.
Yeah.
She made a claim, and I told her she was wrong.
What was the claim?
She was talking about the song We've Got Tonight.
Okay.
I believe it was.
All right.
And the claim that it was produced by a certain person. And I said, it wasn't produced. It was produced by this person on this date at this studio in this town. And she was like, it's impossible for you to know all that. And I was like, I'm telling you, the song We've Got Tonight was, produced by Bob Marlette at Ypsilanti Studios in Ypsilanti, Michigan on April 24th, 1976.
Yeah.
And I've got to check that. So she come back the next day, and she brought the record from home, pulled it out and looked at it, and she seen that I was correct. And in a real snotty voice, she said to me, well, aren't you just a little music god?
Oh, and how funny.
After that, all of my friends that's what I was. Any question about music, they came to me, and it stuck with me my whole life. I've had this insane knowledge of music that, and I've kind of run with a little bit as a joke because I do. I mean, a lot of people focus on a particular genre of music, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I have had radio shows that were country. I've done a punk show. I've done a radio show that was cover songs. I have done mashups. I've done a punk, or I've done a metal show. I've done, my 2 podcasts now are basically music related all across genres. So I can talk to you equally about Bob Marley as I can about Kenny Rogers, as I can about Bob Seger, as I can about Creator, as I can about Barbara Streisand, as I can about whatever. And it throws people off because when I did my original radio show, I would play The Cure, and then I would play Slayer, and then I would play the Charlie Daniels, and then I would play something, and people were like, why do you do that? Why do you play thrash metal, country, and alternative all together? Because I can.
That's just how your mind works, right? There is no genre of music. It's because I can. Music.
And it's me showing off in a way, kind of like, look what I can do, and I don't do it to be cocky, but I kind of do, because I love spreading music. And I find that a lot of songs by artists, the best songs aren't the ones they release as singles. They aren't the ones that are, the deep cuts are some of the best songs. And you don't hear them on the radio. People don't know those songs, and I want them to know those songs. So that's kind of my flex per se, is I play a lot of deep cuts. And
so, talk about what was your first gig? You talked about your first show. Tell me a little bit about that. Your first time
gig musically in a band,
or your work. Well, let's talk about, like, you. It sounds like you
talking about the first concert I went to,
or the first, like you mentioned, your first radio show. Talk about, like, did you do parallel travels? Like, were you making music as well as, like, working on the radio and doing other things? I guess I'm curious about your musical journey.
My very first band, excuse my language, we started a band. I was 16 years old. It was kind of metal, kind of country. It was, if Jerry Reed recorded a Metallica record, I guess is the best way to describe it.
All right.
We were playing this music that was really an amalgamation of what I grew up with. And they were revved up country songs in a lot of ways. Super Suckers, if you know who the Super Suckers are, it's pretty close to what we were kind of doing. Eddie Spaghetti, long before Eddie was doing it. And we won a contest, and we got to open for Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, how fun.
And we got on stage, and I was like 16 years old at the time. We went up there, and I don't think we were particularly good, but we were loud and we were aggressive, and we had fun with it. And during the last song, I looked over, and Jerry was standing on the edge of the stage watching us.
Oh, how cool.
And my only thought was, oh, that can't be good that Jerry got off his tour bus and actually came to watch us. As we finished the song and we walked off stage, he stepped in front of me. And I kind of braced myself, because I was like, he's going to say something horrible. And he stuck his hand out, and I shook his hand, and he's like, for a bunch of teenage kids, you don't actually suck. And it was like, I'll take it, because coming from you, that's probably as close to a compliment as you're gonna get.
Exactly.
And we just booked after that. Like, we're gonna go while and that was the first serious show that I performed musically. I've done tons since then. Once my sons were born, I transitioned to the radio side. Actually, I had a punk show out in California on college radio. And it was right around the time that pop punk kind of broke big.
Yeah.
Of course, that didn't last very long because I broke every FCC rule in the book, and
Okay.
they canceled me kind of because his show wasn't meant for FM, and I didn't realize it was going to be on FM. I thought it was going to be more kind of pirate radio, but
yeah.
I had friends that did the pirate radio, so I kind of tinkered with that with them. When the internet radio thing started on, I would appear on people's show, and I had a friend who showed up at my house one day with a mixer, a microphone, and all the software, and said, "Here, what the hell am I supposed to do with that? You're going to create a radio show." And I was like, I don't know the first thing about that. And he's like, "You're going to learn." It went from there.
Wow.
First show, like I said, I played everything under the sun. There was no format to it. There was no anything. It was just me getting on doing this. Hey, this is a song I like. This is a song I like. This is a song I like. This is the story of this song growing up. And it was a mess. But I got better at it. And, you know, I am much more focused now. When I still play everything under the sun, but yeah.
What you mentioned you're doing a couple of podcasts. What podcasts are you doing?
I have my main one, which is the Noise Report.
Okay, so tell me about that.
I interview people all we do music mostly, but we do pop culture, we do movies, we do authors. I've interviewed some of my biggest musical heroes, people that I, as a teenager, laid on my bed looking at posters of and wanting to be them. So that has been surreal. A lot of famous movie people. One of my favorite ones, I got to interview Lloyd Kaufman and Mitch Cohen, who were the Toxic Avenger. And that was very different for me. I'd never really done movie stuff before that. And you know, Toxic Avenger is one of the movies where it's silly and dumb, but it's a great movie. It's just tongue-in-cheek and fun. And it was kind of surreal. You know, Kaufman is kind of he's kind of a legend among home movie enthusiasts and B-movie geeks that, you know, people who love bad movies. So, and he doesn't do a lot of interviews. So it was pretty special at that time to score that interview and just have fun with it. Like, I had a lot of laughs, and I learned a lot about the movie industry that I didn't know before that. So that was a cool one. Ray Wilson was another one that I got to interview, who Ray is one of my biggest musical heroes. Even before he was in Genesis for that brief time, I was a huge fan of Ray. And scoring that interview was very surreal.
I bet. Talk to me about that.
You know, I got it in my head one day. I wanted to interview Ray. Like, I've loved his music going all the way back. And I sent an email, and I thought, worst case scenario, he's going to tell me to piss off. And he actually replied back and said, I'd love to do it. And we talked for almost 2 hours, and I very, very great guy. And it's pretty humbling when people that you've idolized for so long take the time to talk to you, when I'm really a nobody. I mean, I'm not Howard Stern. I'm not Eddie Trunk or anybody like that. And, you know, for them to take time out of their day and their tour and all the different things that they have going on, that's wild to me. And, you know, I asked a million questions, and I have this silly thing I do called the Music Gods Random Questions of Insanity. and we played a few rounds of that, and he laughed because they're just really random, dumb questions that are more fitting for playing in a bar while you're drinking with your friends than really for a interview. But they're icebreaker type questions, and they're very different than what a musician would normally get asked.
Yeah.
So they're fun, when they're tongue in cheek, and they make people think like, wow, Ray said on a couple of them, I've never in my life in 40 years, I've never been asked that question.
So CJ, you got a couple of examples to ask me?
I have,
putting you on the spot here. Yeah.
I will throw this one at you. This is the one that I end all my shows with.
Okay.
I call this the life or death question.
Okay.
I'm going to give you two choices.
Okay.
And you have to pick choice A or choice B.
Got it.
Choice A is, from this moment forward for the rest of your life, every movie you watch will have Gilbert Gottfried in the lead starring role.
Okay.
Or option B, going forward, from this moment forward, every song you hear will now be performed by Cardi B.
Okay. All right. So I am a huge Penn and Teller fan, and Penn Jillette adored Guilford Godfrey. In fact,
Right.
He talked about that, on his podcast, that, he told his daughter Moxie that she should know that she was alive with one of the funniest men ever.
Right.
But I just can't see Casablanca with Gilbert Godfrey. So I'm going to take Cardi B. I'm going to take Cardi B, and I'm looking forward to hearing her version of Born to Run.
and that's what makes the question so great.
Yes, absolutely.
Is when you think about the A and the B.
Right.
Option A, you are now going to see Roadhouse, Dirty Dancing, Full Metal Jacket, The Crow, all starring Gilbert Gottfried.
Yes.
Or you are now going to hear Eye of the Tiger, Heart of Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven.
With Cardi B. That's awesome.
With Cardi B.
That's a great question. That's a great question.
It's really, wow. Like, do I want to hear Cardi really perform this? Or, and I love Gilbert. I really do.
Sure.
I think it's the proverbial train wreck. Seeing Gilbert as the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket, for example,
yes,
would be hilarious.
Right.
Because I think he would just have a way. And even, for example, if you put him in Roadhouse, I still think Gilbert would have found a way to make that work. But
yes,
like you said, Casablanca. Do I want to see him do Casablanca? Do I want him see him do, To Kill a Mockingbird, or Gone with the Wind? Probably not, so it's and not that I want to see Cardi really or hear her perform anything, because her voice is annoying as hell to me, but I don't know what I would choose personally. I've never thought about it in depth, but it's a tough question, and it's one that people love. They're always like, ooh, like that's a brutal choice. And
I love that. That's very good.
That's one I ask every time, but there's about 500 questions on the list. And they're very random. Sometimes I have people just pick numbers randomly, and we'll do it that way. Sometimes I'll scroll the list. Sometimes for a particular person, I have certain ones in mind. If I know they're really big into comic books and movie stuff, then I'll kind of focus towards that. But mostly I want them to have fun. I want them to, I know as a musician, probably, if I'm interviewing a musician, they've already been asked, when are they going to tour? What are their influences?
Sure.
What inspired them to do this record? Why did they do this? Why? They've been asked those questions 4,000 times.
Yes.
So I don't need to beat a dead horse.
Right.
I think outside the box, I'll ask a question and we just go with it. And wherever it ends up, it's just where we go. And I've had some fun times with people that talking about stuff that I had no idea they knew about.
Yeah.
You know, I interviewed Mike Tramp from White Lion, and I had no idea that Mike is a Monopoly fanatic.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And we ended up talking about Monopoly for 20 minutes. And, you know, who would have thought to ask Mike Tramp about his favorite board games?
Yeah. So I kind of do similar thing, CJ. And I use this, Norm Hitzkus is a sports talk show host here in the Dallas area. And he was telling a story once that if you ask Nolan Ryan about his no-hitters, you will get kind of the same stories and everything. Yeah. But if you ask Nolan about the home runs he hit in his career, his face lights up and he goes, you know, he engages.
Exactly.
And so I always think about that, you know, what is the question that someone, you know, and like I had a former Playboy model on, and I asked her, you know, what is the cliche that, you know, you get the most and everything. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's great. You did mention, I take it you are a fan of live music as well as recorded. Talk to me about some of your shows and what you love about them, their performers.
The very first show I ever attended.
Yeah.
And you're going to crack up at this because this is still to this day, I've been to over 1,000 shows in my life.
Okay.
This is still the craziest lineup I've ever seen. Very first show my dad took me to it was 38 Special and Iron Maiden opening for Rainbow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I mean, 38 Special, Southern Rock, Maiden, power metal, opening for Rainbow, which was, you know, Prague. So it was this crazy lineup, but it was a blast. I have seen Monsters of Rock back in 86, 87, I think it was, at the Pontiac Silverdome. I seen Pink Floyd at the Pontiac Silverdome. I attended Monsters of Rock, Castle Donington in 1984.
Okay.
Ozzy, AC/DC, Motorhead. The highlight was Gary Moore. I am a massive Gary Moore fan.
Okay.
Seeing Gary Moore perform, unlike anything I've ever seen. Gary was in a planetary spin of his own. Like, the way a lot of guitar players talk about Eddie, that's scary for me. You know, Gary was just, he was otherworldly. I've seen Depeche Mode and It's Her Neb. I got to meet Jerry Reed in a truck stop. Who else have I seen? I've seen all of the 80s hair bands. Yeah. Very few of those I haven't seen.
So any Springsteen?
I've never had the chance.
Bruce.
I have not seen Bruce, but I've seen Little Steven twice.
Nice. Talk to me a little bit about those.
I seen him the first time at CBGB's.
Okay.
We actually went to see a punk band and we got there late. So we stayed overnight and Stevie did kind of this random show. It was sort of an unannounced show.
Yeah.
And him and an acoustic guitar mostly.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to say acoustic guitar, but just him and a Telecaster for the most part.
Sure.
Great show. Mostly playing cover songs, Motown stuff, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Great performer. I love Stevie.
Yeah.
Both an amazing musician and an actor.
Yeah. I was going to ask, did you read his autobiography?
I have not.
It is
read his.
really
I didn't
well
even know
done.
he had an autobiography.
Yeah, he's just released one this end of last year. Really, he beats himself up a lot about some of the choices he made.
Yeah.
It's like he says, sometimes I think I'm allergic to making money. But
that's a lot of musicians.
Yes. But it was a really fun. I recommend it strongly.
Yeah, I'll definitely read it. He's one of them. I don't know how to put this. He's one of them great rock and roll characters.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, the pirate, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like there's those people in rock and roll who they're known for the prowess.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's those that are known for their bad behavior. And then you have those that they're just characters, and they're good characters. You have Stevie, you have Lemmy from Motorhead, you have Tom Waits. They're almost bigger than life in the fact that they are songwriters, they're poets, they're troubadours, they're they're the type of people you write movies about,
right?
Really. And whether you know their music really well or don't, you know who they are. And there's actors that way. My son, one of my older sons, pulled a movie out the other day, and he was listening it. He goes, it has Tom Sizemore in it. I don't know who Tom Sizemore is. And I was like, oh, you know who Tom is? He's like, I don't. And then I showed him a picture, and he goes, oh, I know who that is. And I was like, yeah, Tom is one of them guys. You know his face, but you don't always know his name.
Right.
But I'll guarantee you've seen Tom Sizemore in at least 5 movies.
Sure.
And there's those people in rock and roll that, Stevie is one of them people. He's been around forever. He's played with a who's who of rock and roll, if they're from New York or Jersey or the East Coast, and has made a great career in TV and movies. And that's awesome that when people can do that. Henry Rollins, for example, who would have ever thought Rollins would be successful in movies or TV, and the guy is a machine, but here's a guy who, when he first started in music, was working in Haagen-Dazs as an ice cream guy, and accidentally lucked into becoming one of the most legendary punk rock guys of all time. So
well, I have one for you.
Okay.
I don't know. Don Rio is a Hollywood writer, producer, and he co-wrote a book with Clarence Clemens.
Okay.
The big man.
Yep.
And so they tell the story, and this is a true story, that Don Rio at the time was the executive producer on My Wife and Kids.
Okay.
With
Damon Wayans.
Damon. Yes. So he takes Damon to a Springsteen show.
Okay.
Damon had never gone. And so before the show, they're in the green room, and they're kind of walking in, and little Steven walks in.
Okay.
And Don says, oh, little Steven, this is Damon. Damon's like, oh, it's great to meet you. Big fan of your comedy. And he's like, Silvio, it's Silvio. This is great. Oh, nice. So they walk out, and Damon looks over at Don and says, why is Silvio here? Why is Steven Van Zandt here? He goes, oh, he plays on Bruce's band.
Yeah.
wow, Bruce must be a huge Springsteen fan to hire this guy. So Don Rio tells this to Bruce, and Bruce says, yeah. He said, I like that. Yeah, I'm just watching TV and I go, oh, that guy. I should have him in my band.
Yeah.
Oh, one of my favorite stories.
I'm trying to remember the I know it's not Christopher Titus. It's one of the comedians tell a story about randomly meeting Bruce, essentially, and being a fanboy, essentially.
Yeah.
And asking this totally dumb question and not even being oblivious to how dumb the question was.
Right.
And then when they walked away, he realized how dumb the question was. And he thought, oh God, Bruce is going to tell stories about this for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And he got, back home, and apparently Bruce and Patty had sent him like this expensive bottle of wine and whatnot to and sent him front row tickets. And I can't remember the comedian. I want to say it's Christopher Titus. It's either Christopher Titus or Jeff Dunham.
That's a great story.
But that it wasn't really a dumb question. He thought it was a dumb question because he's so, he's such a huge fan. And I swear, I want to say it's Christopher Titus. I'm almost positive it's Christopher Titus. But they ended up going to the show with Bruce and becoming friends and whatnot and all this other stuff from it. But Bruce is Bruce is one of them guys that you kind of know him without realizing you know him. Huey Lewis and Rick Springfield are in that same category. You don't realize you know as many songs by them,
right,
as you really do.
Sure.
And I challenge anybody with this. Take a Huey Lewis record and just put it on randomly. Yeah. And you'll realize, I didn't even realize I knew this many Huey Lewis and the New songs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bruce is the same way. Put a Bruce Springsteen record on or a Billy Joel record.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, holy crap, I didn't realize I knew this many songs by this guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And even if you don't listen to him every day, you'll get that reaction because he's been so on the radio so much. He's been in movies, he's been in TV shows, and he's just, it's a universal talent that goes beyond just being Bruce Springsteen, or just being this person of, they kind of transcend pop culture in their own way. And
I think so. I was asked a couple weeks ago, there's a guy does a fun podcast that basically he gets two people on and they debate. Like the latest episode that dropped was I'm gonna get it wrong. It was like the Godfather trilogy and one other trilogy. They were debating which one, but he had me and April on. April's a friend she loves Duran Duran and I love Bruce Springsteen. So we debated 80s band, and it was so much fun talking about that, about how much they're in the culture and everything. Yeah. So that's wonderful. Yeah.
It's, it was such a different time then. Like music really had, not that today's music doesn't have the same value.
No.
But I think ultimately there was less noise.
Yeah.
Back then, my grandfather had, and still to this day, the basement in his house.
Yeah.
He had one of them old cabinet type stereos.
Sure.
And my dad had one. My dad had the Zenith one. It had the TV in it, and then the top flipped up and it had the record player, the 8-track.
Yeah.
All of that. And the one I had in the basement, I didn't even sleep in my bedroom that often upstairs. I would go downstairs and I would sleep in the basement on the couch because the record player was down there, and I could put a record on, and I could just lay in the dark, and I could just soak in the music without all the other thing. You didn't have the internet, you didn't have cell phones, you didn't have computers, you didn't have the constant buzz and the noise that you have today that takes away from the ability to really focus. Like, back growing up, when you got a record, Boston, for me, Boston was the record, that the debut Boston record.
Right.
I played that thing until it was see-through practically. I would wear the grooves out on it. And my dad replaced it so many times. He finally bought me my own copy, threw it at me and said, "No, leave my damn Boston record alone."
Oh, how funny.
But you took the music in then, and it was almost a religious experience in a way. In the sense that you had those people you loved, and you waited, you stood in line for concert tickets. That was another thing that people don't get that experience. How many times growing up did you stand in line overnight to get that ticket that you weren't going to get otherwise, unless you were there 7 p.m. the night before, and kids today, the younger generation, you can tell them about it, but if you weren't there, you really don't understand. And you don't understand that there were 1,000 people in those lines with you, but you were family. You were all, you had the same single objective, and nobody was going to mess with you because they were going to mess with everyone else in that line. You know what I'm saying? And nowadays you see a fight on the street and people are more apt to film it on their cell phone than to actually help somebody. And you would have never seen that back then.
I think you're right. The other thing that, and as I sound like the grumpy old man, I was born in 59, so I graduated high school in 77. And so I grew up on top 40 radio. So similar to you, there was this diversity of music on that radio. You heard everything. You heard pop, you heard rock, you heard soul, you heard R&B, you had disco, you had everything on there. Doo-wop, everything.
I love doo-wop music.
And it was just and now then, and there is some beauty. There is some beauty that when I get in the car and I can go to Sirius XM, and if I feel like hearing, Little Steven's Underground Radio, I can flip it there. If I want to hear, if I want to go to Willie Nelson's Country Road and hear classic country, I can. If I want to hear the Bruce Springsteen channel and hear just Bruce, or the Pearl Jam channel, just Bruce, or, the Billy Joel channel, whatever it is, that's a beautiful thing I can have. But there was something cool about turning that radio and not knowing what you were going to get. And
like,
you got a little bit of everything.
Like so I've had, over the years, thousands of records, tens of thousands of cassettes, digital music, more music than I've been all over the world. I've lived in 48 states. I've lived in 14 countries. And this is another one of my rock and roll stories. I have one record. I got it when I was 9 years old. The single record has stayed with me my entire life. It has never been stolen. It's never been replaced. It's never been lost. The only record that I can say this about. And it is this one.
Yes.
This is an original pressing of Frampton Comes Alive.
Yes.
Worth a fortune. And it's a single only record I had that my friends have never stolen. It's never been lost in any of the moves. It's never been broken.
So listeners, what you don't get, and hopefully CJ will send me a photo of this.
Yeah.
It's vinyl, and you can see how old it is because
Yeah.
the ring of where the actual vinyl
Yeah.
is
Literally.
shown on that. You can see the outline of that.
It still has.
That is not in mint condition, my friend.
I tell you, no, it's
Now,
that the case isn't, but I will promise you the record is
pristine.
very much.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is so great.
So, but yeah, this is a single one record. All my Boston ones have been lost or replaced or stolen. My Chicago, my Survivor, my Def Leppard, all my 80s ones, Bad Company, all of those have all, I've had to replace or whatever over the years. But
yeah,
this little beauty right here, he stuck with me like glue through it all.
The closest
through the army, through different countries, Brazil, the Philippines, Thailand.
That's awesome.
It's stuck to my butt, like,
That's great. Great.
Yeah.
So future plans for the podcast. What do you want to do next?
I just kind of, there is going to be an audio part of it.
Okay.
I'm revamping that. Right now, I kind of took it video, kind of like this, and we're putting it on YouTube. I have a reaction channel there that I do music reactions.
Yeah.
I won't say it's highly successful, but it is about 100 times more successful than I ever expected it to be.
Okay.
I went into it thinking my whole life. The funny thing is, I never watched MTV.
Okay.
I've never been a video guy as far as music videos. So I thought, I'm going to start reacting to videos because I've heard Metallica Master of Puppets 10,000 times.
Okay.
I've never seen a single Metallica video in my life.
Right.
So here I am at 51 years old. All right, I'm going to react to Master of Puppets by Metallica.
Okay.
People are like, how are you a metal expert and you've never seen? I've always listened to audio, never video.
Yeah.
So I honestly expected 10, 15, 20 people to watch my videos. Okay. I don't know the first thing about video editing.
Okay.
I did a video, posted it at like 12:15 one night, woke up the next morning and it had like 58,000 views. And I thought, wow, okay. Maybe people will watch it.
Sure.
And in the first 60 days of doing the channel, I've amassed about 10,000 subscribers, about 350,000 views, and about
nice
10 million listening minutes. So not up there with, the big boys, but for a reaction channel for the first 60 days,
pretty good.
I'm smashing it. I've been told that I am so far ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to edit video that well. I really don't. Like, I have this crappy little program that's a screen capture program. So, I put one screen over here and I do that. And then I have my little camera over here and I just overlap them and talk about what's going on. And so we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep pushing the video side of it. I'm going to get the audio side of it back up and running so that I can do that, because that's kind of where my expertise is. I have a second podcast that I recently created and just launched called the Racket Bracket.
Okay.
Where we do bracket style things. I create really random and fun, silly brackets.
Okay.
And then I invite the guests on and I kind of surprise them with it. And I let them make all the choices. And all the brackets are randomly generated by a computer program.
That sounds fun.
I've done the very first one we did was the greatest guitarist of all time, not named Eddie Van Halen.
Okay. There you go.
Eddie was not on the list because obvious reasons, Eddie would have automatically won in most people's eyes.
Yeah.
We did a greatest rappers one. We did the greatest comic showdown one recently. I haven't posted that one yet. Where I chose 16 DC and 16 Marvel characters, put them all into the generator. The generator chose violence and matched up people in first round that immediately had my guests off the rails because they were like, wait, the very first choice I have to pick is Spider-Man versus, Lobo. Oh, you say, but it went from there. And they're fun. Sometimes when we did the guitar one of the very first choices that it made was Stevie Ray Vaughan versus Gary Moore.
Okay. And that must have been tough for you.
And that's the thing. It's not my bracket. I narrate it. I add my opinions to it, but all of the picks are of those of the guests. So on that one, me and the guest was very much a Stevie Ray Vaughan. And 99.9% of the time, I'd have gone with Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
But not against Gary.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it's fun. It's tongue in cheek. It's done really just to kind of make people think. And some of the choices, very obvious. Some of them really brutal to make. Some of them really, really make you think. The comic one, for example, when we got to the final, we had Thanos versus Scarlet Witch.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we had to discuss that one back and forth because, you got Thanos with all of his whatnot, but you got Scarlet Witch over here with her, her power.
Yeah.
And, we had to really break down the nuts and bolts of what if this happened, what if this happened. And it's just geeky stuff, really.
It sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah, but we're going to do a bassist one. We're going to do a drummer one. We're going to do a keyboard one. We're going to do a male vocalist one, a female vocalist one. Greatest rock stars one. I'm going to do a rock star one. And the rock star one is going to be people like Bruce, John Cougar Mellencamp, or John Mellencamp. I still call him John Cougar Mellencamp.
Yes, I know.
It's going to have Huey Lewis, Bob Dylan.
Okay.
It's going to have those, I guess, more rootsy type rock stars. The ones we grew up with and loved. Bob Seger, Rick Springfield.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring somebody in and we're going to let them debate, is John Mellencamp better or worse than Bruce? Is Bruce better or worse than Rick Springfield? Is Rick better or worse than Tina Turner? Is Tina Turner better or worse than Pat Benatar? So
that sounds a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I'd love to have you on there, man. If you want to do one.
Yes, you just let me know when, and I'm there. I'd love it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because I got, and I can custom make one. I mean, if there's an idea that you have, we could do the, if you really want to get into it, we could do 16 or 32 of Springsteen songs.
That would be fun.
I'll randomly pick 32 songs of Springsteen and we'll see what the generator gives us and we'll discuss.
That would be fun.
Songs or what, and what ends up being the best,
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
All right. I'll make that happen and I'll get with you. But
all right, that sounds perfect. All right. Just like you, I end every episode with a question as well. So if you are a friend of CJ's and you are listening, thank you. He did you proud. Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher that has recently retired. He would, when he was teaching his honors, his seniors, they would spend 2 days breaking apart Thunder Road. He would look at the lyrics, they would talk about the themes, and at the end of the 2 days, he would ask his class, does Mary get in the car? CJ, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
I'm going to flex a little bit here.
Please, that is still encouraged.
Yes, Mary does get into the car.
Okay.
Mary does go down the road.
Yes.
And Mary ends up back where she started years later, telling the story in another song called The Promise.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
So yes, Mary does get into the car, but it doesn't work out, and she ends up back where she started. Because Bruce says essentially that they drove the Challenger down Route 9. Promises were broken.
Yeah.
I cashed in a few of my dreams. And essentially he tells the story later of, even though technically I think everybody knows what The Promise really was about.
Yeah.
It is a direct continuation, because he says in The Promise, you know, Thunder Road for the lost lovers and the fixed games, Thunder Road for the tires rushing by in the rain. So Bruce pretty much says that, yes, she did get into the car, and, you know, things didn't work out, but life went on. And
you're my first guest that has ever connected The Promise. We've all talked about that.
Okay.
But you're the first person to Mary question. Someone did bring up that I loved, is someone said yes, but in Racing in the Street, when she sits on the porch, she sits on her daddy's porch. That's the same porch she danced across. And I said, oh yeah, it is. I guess that is. That is great. Great answer, CJ. All right. So if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
Just type in Music God CJ Plain.
Okay.
It will bring up my website, which is riotonthesetmedia.rocks. It'll bring up, if you go to YouTube, Music God CJ Plain is on there, or Music God Reacts.
Okay.
You'll find all kinds of old articles I've written. The history of punk, according to me, very tongue-in-cheek article that was just way deeper in punk than I intended it to be. But again, I wrote an article just to kind of show off my knowledge of punk music.
Okay.
It started as a project in English class in college with the kid who was the quote unquote punk expert, spending 4 pages talking about how Green Day was the savior of punk, and me basically flexing, saying Green Day isn't even a blip on the map in punk, and then exploring that, you know, Depeche Mode, The Cure were all remnants of Ronk. You had Patti Smith and the Riot Girl movement, and you had English punk versus West Coast punk versus East Coast punk. And when I turned that paper, and the teacher was just kind of like, you did that just to embarrass him, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, kind of. Like he was way too cocky with the Green Day thing.
That's hilarious.
He kind of had it coming. Like,
that is hilarious.
You know, but yeah.
That is great, my friend.
So, yep. Yeah,
all right. Well, you and I will connect offline. I would love to join you on the podcast sometimes. Thank you for joining me. Listeners,
thank you for having me, man.
Oh, yeah. Listeners, go get vaccinated, get boosted, and let's be kind to each other, because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, CJ. Thank you.
Let me just really quick explain the
Please.
When I end my reaction videos, my ending is always be well, treat each other with kindness, and remember, no matter how bad you think it is, music heals.
Well said, sir. Well said. I love it. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. You heard it. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.
We just need to be a little kind to each other. So yeah, great.
It's so easy to be kind to people.
Yes,
you know,
it really is.
I've been so blessed in my life, man, that
Yeah,
I've had days where I'm not an overly religious person, but for example, recently I went to the store. Last year I went through a brutal divorce, got custody of my 10-year-old. It's been a battle the whole time. I was down to my last $8, and he wanted ice cream.
Yeah.
Truthfully, probably shouldn't have been spending it on ice cream, but you know, he's such an amazing kid, and I just thought, you know what, you deserve it. Sure. And I went there and I got the ice cream and I got him a Snickers bar, and going through the line just thinking, how the hell am I gonna make it on $8 for the next week?
Yeah.
And the lady in front of me, it was the day before my birthday on April 19th. And she turns to the cashier and she's like, go ahead and put theirs on my thing. And I was like, you don't have to do that. And she's like, no. She's like, it's Easter. She's like, happy Easter. And I just thought to myself, you know, she didn't know anything about me.
Yeah.
She didn't know how dark it was for me at that time, or what I was going through. It was something so simple. It was $2.80 worth of stuff. But that whole single act just completely changed my entire day.
Yeah.
Because he got what he wanted, and I didn't have to spend money on it. And that gave me the money I needed for something else later. And it's so easy to do that. You know, it's so really easy to say, excuse me, or to say thank you, or to say please, or just to offer to help in simple ways.
Yep.
And people don't understand that kindness goes so far. A smile, or just saying hello to someone. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what's on their mind. And sometimes that simple hello might be enough to make them think, okay, not everyone is an inconsiderate ass like we like to think sometimes, because people are in such a rush to get everything, me, now. it's just I kindness is the cornerstone of everything. And I get annoyed when people don't show kindness or when people are arrogant and rude. When I see videos of people like Mr. Beast or people like that who just randomly help people, it makes me cry in a way, because I wish I would be the worst lottery winner in the world.
Yeah.
Because I would go broke just giving most of the money away to people like homeless shelters and Special Olympics and stuff like that. I don't believe anyone should be required by law to help people. But I couldn't go to sleep at night knowing that I had millions of dollars in the bank, knowing that I had a friend who was struggling with a light bill, that had a friend struggling with paying rent, or had a friend who was struggling to get their car fixed. I couldn't go to sleep at night knowing I had that much money and I didn't help them.
Yeah, I hear you exactly. I know what you mean.
And people tell me all the time, oh, you wouldn't actually be like that. And I'm like, I really would. I'm already like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I already pump myself out, for people. I don't care, because karma always comes back and blesses me 10 times over. So
absolutely. Yeah.
And I see stuff, there's a YouTube channel called Tribal People React. And it's these 4 guys from Pakistan that are tribal. They live way out, and in little simple things. Like, they had a coney dog for the first time. And they were so amazed by they'd never seen a coney dog.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, God, like, how do you go through life not know what a coney dog is?
Sure.
Coney dog, And then I think, like, am I rich? No. But man, I got a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. I've got radio equipment for days. I've got millions of songs of music. I'm never hungry. I have lights and electricity. I have running water.
Like, pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a blessed dude. I'm a blessed dude.
I know that feeling too.
Yeah. So, that's really, for me, that's why I say treat each other with kindness and be well. And remember that no matter how dark it seems, there's always a song that can relate to your pain and your whatever, and trust in music is kind of, I guess, what I mean by music heals, is music has gotten me through always. So